3 years ago, I bought this lovely Victorian mansion, sight unseen, in a city I'd never even heard of, much less visited. I packed everything in the car and drove 12 hours to start renovating. Most of the work up to this point has been the grunt work, necessary and satisfying, not glorious or aesthetic. But we're in dire need of a new roof, which means it's finally time to think about paint colors for the exterior of the house. And thanks to submissions from all of you, I've got plenty of ideas to consider. Alright everybody, time to dig into these house colors. There were so many fun suggestions, so a massive thank you to everybody who submitted. These videos would not be possible without you and your contributions. So I'm really looking forward to this. This is going to be so much fun. A couple disclaimers first on aesthetics and taste, because I would like to remind everybody that everybody has different taste. That is normal. The world would in fact be so incredibly boring if everybody had this same taste, if everybody agreed on everything. So I will obviously be filtering these suggestions through my own lens and my own tastes. That doesn't mean that if I don't love your color combinations as much as you do, that I think you're a bad person or that I don't still immensely appreciate you taking the time to contribute. It's not a personal indictment of your taste. It just means that we have different tastes, and that's okay, and that is the beauty of the human condition. Let's jump right in. I will say that a lot of the images that were submitted, I actually had to completely discount because they were in fact AI generated. So once I removed all of those, I was left with significantly fewer options. But I do want to start with a common theme that I saw among all of them, which is that a lot of people submitted painted ladies to me, especially the ones in San Francisco. San Francisco has a Postcard Row or the Seven Sisters, super well known. I have seen them in person. They are truly beautiful. You've got, 3, 4, 5, 6 colors on the same house, and then those colors are used to accentuate and highlight all the really cool architectural details of houses. If you would like to see some actual extant examples of Victorian polychrome decoration, you'd be better off turning to, contemporary publications like this one, which is not to say that I don't love colors. I do love colors, absolutely, but I also find primary sources both incredibly useful and, in my honest opinion, thrilling. The reason that I wanted to start this video here with the painted ladies was, first of all, because so many people submitted these types of photos for inspiration, probably knowing my love of color. I totally get it and support it. But also because I personally think that the best place to start looking at exterior paint decisions is actually with the style of the house itself. What is the house's architectural style? Because that will inform the paint choices, at least in my approach, it will. And basically all of these painted ladies are Queen Anne's, which I should note for my British viewers, bear no resemblance to the architecture that was actually contemporary with Queen Anne's reign in the early 1400s, early 1700s. No, North American Queen Anne's, they kind of were built like roughly 1880s to 1910s. It's a really recognizable style, and I won't lie, I would have absolutely loved to have purchased a Queen Anne. Like, that would have been the all-time ultimate dream. It would have made me so happy, and I would have so much fun decorating them. However, unfortunately, I didn't. The style of the house I did end up buying, it's much more simplistic and demure, and it kind of makes its statement more in its size and its grandeur rather than in having an abundance of architectural doodads, for lack of a better word. So what is the style of my house? It is a little bit hard to say because it is clearly had a couple in its lifetime. Remember that it started out as a 2-story building with a mansard roof, probably was part of a Second Empire sort of aesthetic, and then later on the 3rd story was added, turning it into a more Dutch colonial style gambrel roof. If this is news to you, I highly recommend going back and watching all the videos in the renovation saga. So clearly at some point it got a makeover. It got the 3rd story added onto it. That turned that roof line from a mansard roof into a gambrel roof, definitely turning it into something that resembles a Dutch colonial revival. and it can be kind of hard to envision what is under all the layers of horrible siding that are on there, but thankfully I can in fact turn to this illustration here. If you watched the first video of the year, this may look familiar to you because this was designed by somebody who does renderings of historic houses. They are passionate about historical architecture. They reached out to me and offered to do some renderings of the house, and this is what his estimate of the front elevation might have looked like back in the day. And I'm actually going to be using this as a basis for our color schemes. You can see it's certainly no Queen Anne. It's still very beautiful, but it's symmetrical. There are no turrets, no porches, doesn't have any balconies. You could actually almost call it simplistic. Now, this is not to say that my house couldn't be a bright and cheerful color. I love color. I love cheerful houses. I love people who take risks with their color. It's just to say that these sort of color schemes where you're using 4, 5, 6, 7 different colors really work better when you have that extravagant and ostentatious architectural features that come with the Queen Anne's. I just don't have any of those. So let's look instead at some more simplified color options. Let's dive into the submissions. The first one that I wanted to touch on was submitted by Joshua, and he writes, "I've always loved these two houses ever since I was a kid, and I just like the color combo." First of all, they are both stunning colors. On the left side, we have the seafoam green. It's got cream trim. Again, that cream is skewing really yellow. We've got a little bit of terracotta and a lot of even more saturated green highlights. Also, once again, Queen Anne, so there's a lot of architectural details to pull out there. Then on the right hand side, we've got periwinkle with, again, a light yellow trim. It's got mostly sage accents. There are some places that have a little bit of brown. It is interestingly painted brick rather than a wooden house. I love the color, but don't get me started on painting historic brick. I will go on and on. I will say that at one point as a kid, my bedroom was this exact color. Let's go ahead and do a periwinkle house, shall we? So my thoughts on this are that it works for this house, but it feels a little bit cold to me between the blue siding and the green trim. Green and blue are both skewing cold colors, and yes, the yellow cream helps warm it up, but I think that it's not speaking to me necessarily, despite the fact that I love blue and green. This is like the opposite of a Reuben. A Reuben, I strongly dislike every single ingredient that's in a Reuben, and yet I love a Reuben sandwich. This is kind of like the opposite. I love every color that's going in here individually, but seeing it all together, it's not quite sparking joy. I don't hate it, but I would continue to search for a different color combination that sparked more joy. Sharon P. didn't submit any photos, but she did submit some hex codes as well as a historic property that she's referencing. In this case, she says it's the historic John Milroy house in Texas. So we can look it up even though she didn't send any images of that. We have the hex codes here from Sharon. So she suggests a pale green, a darker green trim, and other accents and roofing in terracotta. And those are all accompanied by hex codes. So let's pull those in and put them on the house, shall we? But first, a quick word from the world's tastiest sponsor. Now, you might not have been able to reach through your screen and grab one of our homemade griddle cakes from last week. Technology is not there yet, but I can offer you the next best thing, the ability to have fresh baked bread in minutes whenever the urge strikes you with today's sponsor, Wild Grain. Wild Grain delivers sourdough breads, fresh pastas, artisanal pastries directly to your door. And if that sounds delicious and convenient, I can confirm it is both. Plus, it'll make your house smell absolutely delicious. Their slow fermentation process is easy on your belly. They don't use any preservatives, and their local bakers and pastry chefs use climate-friendly and seasonal ingredients, which you can check out easily on their website. Every product bakes from frozen in 25 minutes or less. There's no thawing required, and you can choose between variety, gluten-free, vegan, and their new protein boxes. I don't eat gluten-free, but my mother does, so I ordered her a gluten-free box, and she has reported back that it is absolutely delicious. Plus, with every box ordered, they donate 2 meals to a food security nonprofit of your choice at no extra cost to you. So if you'd like to try it out, if you'd like to support the channel, you can click the link in the description and use my code to get $30 off your first box. Plus, as always, free croissant for life. If anybody is wondering what program I'm using to do this, I am doing this in Photopea. I have mentioned this program before. It is basically a completely free version of Photoshop. It is almost identical to Photoshop. Really great tool. Absolutely love it. Use it all the time. So if somebody doesn't want to pay Adobe their monthly subscription fee and you want to switch over and get off of Adobe, Photopea, highly recommend it. 10 out of 10. Highly recommend. Wowee! It is quite something, Sharon. I think these are not quite the colors that we're intending to pull out. So I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to grab an image of this house, pull it in here, and take some colors from the actual house itself, because I think they're going to be a little bit more toned down. This is looking a little bit cartoonish. Okay, let's go digging for colors. Let's take this kind of light sage for the house. Okay, let's try that just to see if we're even in the right vicinity. We are getting a little bit more, this is already looking a little bit more mature, let's say. There we go. I'm not sure I 100% nailed the colors from the John Milroy house, but I think we got pretty close. Interestingly though, I did notice that the trim on the John Milroy house is actually yellow. Everything that they're using for their trim is this kind of fun bright yellow. So just for funsies, if we would change the trim to match the Milroy house, now we're getting somewhere. It's interesting. Now, of course, I don't have a terracotta roof on here because that's above my pay grade. I'll fiddle with it a bit in post. If I can get it in post, I will throw it in here and show you what it looks like. That could be very interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. It feels a little bit too green, which is funny because I do really like green as a color. I really like sage green houses, but something about this, I don't know if it's that the middle green, the darker green, is not dark enough. I will definitely need to play around with it. That does remind me though that somebody else submitted a very similar color scheme. Yes, Solen. Okay, Solen submitted this one, which she said was off Zillow. This is the only photo that I have, but let's just Google it. Let's see if we can find a better view of it. Aha, found it. Okay, well, if anybody in the Portland area has a casual 1.3 million laying around, this puppy could be yours. And look at that architecture. Once again, I am seeing Queen Anne. We've got the turret, we've got a lot of asymmetry, we've got a wraparound porch or two, we've got a couple porches. Yeah, this is definitely screaming Queen Anne. We've got a lovely bay window off to here. The images are pretty low quality, and there don't seem to be very many of the exterior of the house. They also went with light green with a dark green trim, and then this terracotta. It definitely works because they have such a large and interesting roof line. I do love when people do this. I do love when people pull in the color of the roof and really tie it into their house. I'm boring. I tend to not do that. I tend to go with a very neutral roof that'll just kind of disappear. But I do love it when people manage to pull this off, and it looks really good. Solen would also like to share Mishka with us, so everybody say hi to Mishka. He is a mix of a Pyrenees shepherd, long-haired, and a Shetland sheepdog. Becky T submitted several color schemes that are specific to Nova Scotia. So we've got this one, this one, this one. I actually recognize exactly where 3 of these 4 are. And when asked why she submitted these images or these colors, Becky wrote, usually the colors are muted with pops of color, and that she would do the black with or black shingles with beautiful red, but I saw a lot of 3 different colors like medium gray with yellow and red. So maybe we can do a deep dive into historical colors in a future video. I absolutely love that stuff, but I'm not sure how many of you would like it. Try to find a way to make it interesting. I don't want to bore anyone, but basically there are many paint manufacturers that promote their own palette of historical paint colors. Sometimes it ranges, you know, from colonial times through the 1950s. Different paint brands focus on different time eras, but unfortunately they are far less based on, you know, actual historical analysis of paint colors and much more on what a modern eye might find pleasing, might find aesthetic or historically adequate, and most importantly, what will sell. Enter from stage left capitalism, because the truth of the matter is if you stick with purely historically accurate colors, they oftentimes look very ugly to our modern eye and our modern idea of what is visually pleasing. If you'd like to see some examples of actual historic paint swatches, I will put some up on screen for you to look at. But it brings us to this question of, were the colors in Becky's image actually historically accurate? And after having talked to a few different people in the field, including those that work at modern linseed oil paint companies, for example, it is true that like blue, for example, the blue one caught my eye in Becky's photo. Blue is a much later pigment to come in. It is hard to find. It can be unstable. It is the most expensive of the pigments, or one of the most expensive to produce. And so, you know, it costs more. It's hard to find. And true enough, if you do look at the earliest paint charts, you don't tend to see blue. It's either never there, or there's like maybe one option that's blue. You see more pigments that are plentiful in nature, and if you do any fabric dyeing with natural dyes, you will be very familiar with what that looks like. Yellows, reds, browns, some greens, all that kind of stuff. And if you've studied the Victorians at all, you'll know that they were not afraid of color whatsoever. In fact, I'd even go so far as to call some of their color combinations garish by our modern standards. So that kind of begs the question, do I care about historic colors and using them on my house? And the answer is not necessarily. I think that if I had two color schemes that I loved equally, I thought they were both great, and one was historic while one was not, that could be a great deciding factor. I might choose to place more weight slightly on the one that was historic, but the way I feel about historic paint colors is very similar to this meme, which is to say that, you know, if the Victorians had access to the full range of colors that we had today, you better believe that they would make absolutely full and complete use of it. They loved colors, they loved being bright and bold, so in that sense, I'm not too married to the concept of using only strictly historical colors, because I do think that there would be many Victorian that would choose some pretty wild color combinations if they had access to the paints that we have access to today. And all that brings us back to Becky's colors. So, like I said, blue is one of my favorite colors. So I thought we should look at the blue one first. I'm a huge fan of that. So we can use the eyedropper tool and match it to some of these colors. Let's see. Sometimes this can be a little bit tricky, but let's go with something like this for the blue, and then for the red, something like this. And last but not least, the cream, which is going to be kind of tricky. Okay, so now that I've got my three paint colors here, let's go ahead and make the main color this blue. Wow, that is a look. Let's make the trim this kind of neutral cream. Oh, that is too dark. See, this is what I mean when I say it's a little bit tricky. Let's redo that cream. Something light with a bit of yellow in it, maybe. Yes, maybe a bit more like that. Much better. And then we'll use the red for the accent color. There we go. Voila! So that's one possible color scheme. It's looking very patriotic. If you're an American, it's giving Star-Spangled Banner. I'm not sure if I would do this exact shade of blue or of the tan, but I'm also looking at this not sure that my tan is 100%, you know, accurate to the image. In the image, it does look like it has a little bit more yellow and a little less sand color in it. But now let's turn and let's look at one of the other color schemes on Becky's image. So she's sent two gray options, one that has white trim and a red door, and one that has yellow trim with like an orangey red, almost coral color door. And I think that one's more interesting. So let's do gray house, yellow trim. Once again, selecting our colors, doing our best to match the colors here. This one actually should be pretty easy. The colors are pretty homogeneous. Should we go a bit more yellow? Maybe we go a bit more yellow. All right, so what would this look like? Body of the house in a gray. We've got the trim in this yellow, and then our accent color, go in and change the windows. There we go. You know, I don't hate it. I really don't. Now in this rendering, we've got stairs in the front, which I have made gray concrete. So it is giving a lot of gray. But I will say, for somebody who does not love neutral colors, I actually like this a lot more than I thought. Becky, you are onto something with the gray and the yellow trim. It is actually really fun. I would maybe go even a little bit more yellow with the yellow trim. Like, let's see, if I choose this, bring this color back, and I choose an even more yellow. Yeah, it's more like, it's mustardy. If I make the trim that color, there we go. That really bumped the contrast there. I like that even more. You really got to get a bit of contrast, I think. And I would even go with a gray that maybe had a little less blue in it. This gray has, or at least the color that I pulled out from the image, has a lot of blue in it. So I would maybe go even like a little bit flatter. Yeah, look at that. Look at how much blue there is in there. So what if I went with something a little more neutral? Yeah, there we go. All right, Becky, I'm digging it. I still don't know if I would use it on my house. I just don't necessarily see myself owning a gray house. It just sounds so uninspiring to the ear. But seeing it in real life makes me realize that, you know, I don't actually hate it. I wouldn't hate it. I don't think I'll choose it, but I don't hate it. Okay, now we're gonna really go out on a limb. It's gonna be a bold banger. This one comes from Sarah, and just check out this inspiration image. There's also a really great story behind this one, which I really appreciate. Thank you, Sarah, for the story. She writes, "A friend I had in Norway painted her house pink because that was what was on sale. Not only is it easy to see in the snow, she was the only one with that color, to the point that visitors and mail have found its way there by giving the pink house as directions. Sold me on bright pink in a non-pink neighborhood as always being the most sensible choice." She also wrote that she knows her hex code doesn't match. The picture is of a different house in Norway, which got forced to repaint for being too pink. So this story makes me laugh so much because I actually have a joke that I have told to many people, which is that if you go to the house paint store in Norway, there are exactly 4 colors. You get white, you get black, you get that shade of yellow gold, and you get that shade of red. And you are additionally allowed to mix the white with the black to get a couple different shades of gray. But that's it. That's all you get in Norway. That is my joke. And so it is very fun to see somebody from Norway bringing the pink house as the one that stands out. I love the hex code that Sarah provided. It is this lovely pale rose pink. I'm assuming that was her friend's house because she says that the picture is the house that got forced to repaint for being too pink. Now, looking at these, you might shudder at the idea, and I'll be honest, I was skeptical originally of a pink house until I saw actually a similarly colored house. I think I have a picture of it somewhere. If I can, I will throw it up. I've got friends on either side of this house, and if you had described this house on paper to me, I would never have been convinced. It is kind of this odd salmon color, very vibrant with black trim. I would have definitely been skeptical. I would have said there was no way I would have liked this house, but then I saw it in person and honestly, I kind of love it. I don't know that I love it for my house. I don't know that I would choose to paint my house these exact colors, but I do really enjoy it way more than I thought I would. And I also almost always prefer color to, you know, beige or something boring and neutral. With that being said, let's see what Sarah's pink looks like on my house. Now, unfortunately, there was no note here in terms of trim, so I think we're just gonna go with black trim and maybe white accents. Let's play around with this and see. Wowee! All right. Okay, immediate first thought is that this upper triangle needs to not be white. That is clear. I think the white accents around the windows work just fine. I think that the white triangle is horrible. So give me a sec here. We're gonna work on it. It's giving gothic bubblegum. I think this is one of those ones that is going to be very hard to picture in a rendering like this and might look way better in person. It's hard to say. I wonder if there are alternative colors for trims that would work better. If you have ideas for trim colors that would go with the rose pink, or Sarah, if you can tell us what the complementary colors are on your friend's house, on the pink house, we're gonna think on this. We're gonna come back to the bubblegum house. Let me know in the comments what you think. Okay, so we're gonna do one more blue house. And this one, interestingly, actually has a red roof that is very similar to the roof that's on the house right now. So this one is from Lori, and Lori writes that the blue one is the Dartmouth Historical Museum. So let's pull that one in. Let's put this shade of blue with the bright white trim on the house. Let's find a way to make that roof look red like it is currently, and let's see how that looks, because I think that could be a very interesting color combination. We have a red roof. Let's continue with our red accents. I actually think it's quite cheerful. I could see that. That's kind of a fun combination. Now, I never necessarily loved that red roof, but I do think that if you're going to have a red roof, which seems to be oddly popular in Nova Scotia these days, I think this is actually a great color combination. Some of the other color combinations I see are not very much not to my taste. I quite like this one. So I think that was actually a great suggestion. Thank you so much, Lori. So here are all the finalized images. I'm not sure that any one of these screams to me that this is the color combination that absolutely needs to be on the house, but I do think we've got some very fun beginnings of inspiration. I think some of these palettes can be tweaked and adjusted to be a little bit more along my personal taste preferences, but my goodness, that was so much fun. And it was, of course, really nice to do something that was pretty and aesthetic, you know, to balance out all of the dirt and grime and crawling around under the house. So let me know which one was your favorite. If you would like to submit one, the form is still up. It is still linked in the description. Remember the only rule, no AI images or I won't use them. Thank you so much for everybody who contributed, and I will catch you in the next video.